Okay, we'll open the meeting. It is just past 5 o'clock, 2 minutes past 5, and we'll ask for apologies, please. Neville and Jackie. Someone move that those apologies be accepted. Seconder. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Any conflicts of interest? No conflicts of interest. So we'll move on to item 3. Or just before then, the meeting is being recorded. The pandemic, I've just been told the pandemic has been extended till
23rd of December.
23rd of December, so this will be on live on YouTube tomorrow morning. Moving on to item 3, and ask Don and Mark to come up to the table, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're here to present just the one report, and I think it's a relatively procedural type report, which is really just trying to tidy up an element which you've already adopted in terms of reference, and the result of the request for attendees to be on the working group resulted in initially in 8 coming back. So rather than go through a process of trying to choose out of that 8 who shall be the 5, which we felt was fairly fraught with difficulties, and the 5 was always a relatively arbitrary number. Just trying to keep things small. We feel really comfortable with 8 representatives and felt that was an easier path to go down. So the main item here is to change that. However, in addition, we as staff have taken the opportunity to tidy up 2 or 3 other things in the terms of reference, which are obviously up for your debate, and you can choose whether to include those or not in your recommendations. And lastly, there is the chair, the appointment of a chair. We, at the time of writing this report, we didn't have yet enough information about who could be chair. We, as staff, had sought 2 other options other than yourself. It was only this morning that one of those came back and said they didn't feel that they would be suited, or they didn't want this position. And so we really had one suggestion for you at this stage other than yourself. So the suggestion we would like to put forward as a chair is Sandra James, who many of you will be aware of, was a staff member 10 years or so ago, and has since been doing quite a range of different activities around the city and the district, and is well versed in this type of activity and is available and willing to assist. They are, I think, the only ones we have any feedback from at the moment.
Yes, so Sandra was very keen to be involved. I spoke to Kath Adams today, and she felt that she might be a little bit too close to some people involved, and also felt that it could be a rather robust discussion, and she said she hadn't been involved in recent sharing meetings like that. Another person that I've tried to get a response from is a lady by the name of Tammy Martin, so our comms team said that she's done some work in that space in the past, but I haven't been able to get in contact with her yet.
I apologise. It's not supposed to happen. Sorry, Mark.
Just to add some additional comment to the resident group, it's a little bit of a moving target with the numbers. So one person today has suggested they'd like to pull out of that group, but yesterday another resident suggested they'd like to be involved. So the number would still potentially be 8, but the additional resident is not on Paraki Street or Vickery Street, they're on Fuller Street, so they're literally just around the corner opposite the church. The person's name is Paul Croucher. The city is a long-standing resident and knows people on the board, but he was very keen, and he was someone, so far the residents, I guess, that have said put their name forward, they haven't indicated if they're against or for, which is I guess appropriate, but this resident said that he was definitely for and wanted to talk in favour of the cycleway, but because he's not on the street. I don't know if that has an impact on the board's view, and that he could be probably a more of a community representative feel. But it's up for consideration, and I said that I'd let you know tomorrow depending on the board's thoughts.
Isn't one of them on Carew Street or of the 8?
One's on the corner of Carew
Oh,
and Rugby, so they are basically on the street frontage.
I've got no trouble with 4 being on.
He has a history with being in the fire service and author, so has a lot of background knowledge.
So, have you got any further?
That's our presentation, and we're happy to take questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Sorry, John.
It stays like one is that one of the ones, which was 2 from one family?
Oh, okay, so no, the person that Rachel Campbell is the only person that has since suggested she wants to be taken on. She emailed me and said, we're having a discussion because she wants to know when this was taking place. And I said the numbers have increased to 8, and she said, well, if the numbers are 8, she says, I don't really need to be on it. She was just a bit concerned that there wasn't going to be enough representation in the initial consultation. So,
Yeah. That's fine. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Did you have any other applications after the cut-off point?
so just that maximum number.
So do you think it's appropriate to appoint people after your cut-off date?
I guess this is why I've come into the board with suggesting this person, because they wasn't part of the literature that went out to the street. They're outside of the scope of that. They hadn't received any information, so I think they've seen it on a Facebook page, and so suggested through the Facebook portal they'd be interested to be part of it. So, yeah, I guess I'm not sure if that's appropriate because it's outside of the scope of the time, and they're not on the street, but they bring probably more of a community view rather than a street view.
I think procedurally we would suggest that if you were wanting to be procedurally strong and robust in your decision making, that would probably be best to decline this application if it was after the time that we sought and he isn't in the street. So it does depend, the reasons for allowing it would be to increase representation, and we're really in a working party, working group type. It's not a vote-taking exercise, and so the reasons for including it would be to ensure that a wide range of views were at the table. But we have no firm view about which way you would like to go on this. So that's just a little bit of guidance that I feel as to which way you may vote on that.
Al?
Representation from the cycle lot 1 or 2. Can you give us any more info who they represent and how many, what weight they bring to the table, and etc.?
So we've got one person that's recommended to us from the North Canterbury Cycling Club. They're actually out of town at the moment, and so I haven't been able to talk to them. But at this stage, we were just looking at one representative from the North Canterbury Cycling. We felt that they probably would bring fair representation from a more generalised cycling team.
Have we not got anyone local that we could approach, Mark,
This person
for the cycle?
is local, is in Kaiapoi local.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually if they're in Rangiora. I think they might live in Rangiora actually. But yeah, I guess to try and tease out some cyclists and find if we wanted to, 2 representatives. We talked about 1 or 2.
We felt it best to approach the organisation, and the organisation has recommended this person. So rather than us shoulder tapping cyclists, we've shoulder tapped the
That's
cycling
understandable.
club.
Yeah. Bree?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. In terms of the wayfaring info, I see that could have a lot of influence in terms of whether or not these cyclists will head down William Street or go down Vickery Street, etc. Has there been any decisions made with regard to that? And secondly, in terms of the discussions that the applications will have back with the residents, is there any discussions as to how that's going to work?
With regard to the former, if the outcome at the end of this process is that the board decides to have a cycleway on Paraki Street, then there would be very clear wayfinding signage at the corner of Vickery and Williams, which would tend to lead people at the right intersections. There would be signage to lead people along. If the board chooses to not endorse Paraki as a cycleway, then I think, as referred to at an earlier meeting, we would probably look to putting some sort of just directional, or I won't call it directional, information signage at that point, which would say, you are here, the bridge is over here, and here are some streets, and people would make their own decision on that basis. With regard to the second point, we have had quite a lot of thought about how this could work, and it's not part of your resolution as such, but we're happy to share our initial thoughts. We're thinking that we will hold 2 workshops in a row. The first one is probably a little bit of a scene setting, getting things on the table and then off the table, as well as having some initial as well as setting the ground rules about how these things will apply, and also beginning some conversation, hopefully, about options. The second one, which would be a week later, would go into more detail about the issues that people are facing and the options to mitigate that. What we would hope for at the end of the second one is a scheme plan that the group was happy to consult on. I'm not saying they are happy with the plan, because they still may object to it, but they agree that it represents something that we can then take to the residents. We then have a 2-week process for the residents, where we would be sending out plans, a survey form, and in an invitation to partake in, and we're thinking things like street corner meetings, as well as doorstep meetings, so people can ask to meet with us. The street corner meetings, we're thinking we would have 3 or 4 or 5 in an afternoon at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and we'd be at the corner of Hugh and Paraki, and then we'd go to the corner of Fuller and Paraki, or whatever it might be. We haven't thought through that detail, but we would have a number of smaller meetings rather than a big meeting. We had initially thought about a drop-in meeting, like a drop-in session, and I think it'll depend a little bit on the feedback we're getting. We'll think about that a little bit more in conjunction with the working party about whether that is necessary. After we've done that, then the survey forms will come back. We've had quite a bit of discussion about the nature of those survey forms. We would like them to give as much information as possible rather than just a yes-no answer, but we probably appreciate that people will want to say a yes-no answer somewhere on the form. So we'll be seeking as much information to give you guidance as we can on that. We will then collate that information and have another workshop with the working group to discuss what the community has said, and then at that point we would prepare a report for you, pulling together the various sources of information, including the minutes and the notes and the outcomes from the working group, the survey, and our own review and our own recommendation as well will form part of that, at which time you would make your decision, and we're planning on that being at your December meeting. When I say you would make your decision, you would make your recommendation to the council. Council for you and R, we're sort of just thinking, in December there's not much opportunity for further meetings to endorse that, given that you're in the middle of December. But we would just think about that and work through that with the likes of the governance team to make sure we had an appropriate response time. Ideally, the outcome of all of this will be a decision before Christmas, one way or the other, so that we can either begin the next stage of designing the works in Paraki, or finding where we're going to, and reallocating the money and designing that works, all with the intention that, as we all know, if it's not spent by the end of June, it disappears. So I hope that gives a breakdown of our current thinking. Isn't in your recommendations, but we would still retain the flexibility of how that all works, but that's how we're thinking at the moment. Thank you.
Don, I'm looking at the working group terms of reference and item number 8, delegation, and you've quite clearly said the PBSCWG has no delegated authority, but I think it's important to add any recommendations are to the KTCP. Your thoughts?
Yes,
Yeah.
very happy. That is our intention.
Yeah.
So it was just to ensure that it was very clear to everybody that not a decision-making entity,
Exactly.
they're only a recommending entity.
And this meeting is minuted, of course, and those minutes will be distributed to the Kaiapoi-Tuahiwi Community Board, that, so that everybody knows what's going on.
Yes.
Sorry.
If I could just clarify that point, they will be minuted, but as you will have also noted in the terms of reference, we're ensuring, we're trying to make sure, and you'll see the Chatham House rules here, so while it'll be minuted, it won't be allocated
Absolutely.
to a particular person.
From my point of view, I'd like to see more cycling advocates, as in a definite 2 rather than just 1. Your thoughts on that? Please.
The time frames now, Mark has come to me in the last couple of days and expressed a bit of a concern about our original time frame now that we're sort of squeezing things up with further meetings and this meeting. So our time frame now probably does allow that. Our first of our workshop meetings is the 22nd of October, about the 22nd. So that's 2 or 3 weeks away. So with that extra week, I think we do have the opportunity to keep looking for that representative and add to there. Very happy to take that advice.
And my other question to you is, Paul Dallas, is he representing the residents and the fire brigade?
No.
No, he'll just be representing the fire brigade. Yeah, fire service.
The residents.
There is a further representative who's been appointed.
From the fire brigade. Thank you.
So, yeah. And we're still seeking confirmation from his management of that. So he put his name forward saying he wants to represent the fire brigade, and I've asked him for confirmation from the fire service rather than just his word.
Yes, yeah. And my other question is, and I think you might have answered it earlier, do you have anyone that's for the actual cycleway on this team of 8?
Haven't asked that question of them. I wasn't sure.
I'm thinking that you probably haven't, but I would have thought that would have been quite important.
We thought carefully about how people get appointed onto here, and we felt that it was inappropriate for us or for you, frankly, I guess, to say you can be because you hold this view and you can't be because you hold that view.
Yep.
So we just invited the whole street. We didn't ask them what their views are, and in a way we'll take what we get and work with those. We're very hopeful that there will be people amongst that group who are willing to listen and discuss and be open about the conversation and don't come in with too fixed a mind, that we can make some good progress.
Okay, cool. Any more questions? Ali?
Can I ask, I'm pretty unhappy about staff being removed from the committee. Can I ask how you envisage that will work in a supportive role, actually around the table on the day? How do you envisage that working?
I envisage it similar, I guess, to any workshop or briefing we have with you. Normally we are not there as equal partners, and if I'm being totally honest, even if we are named as equal partners, some are more equal than others, and we've always taken that approach. So a staff member being part of a working group, I think, places that staff member in a bit of an invidious decision. We are there to assist and advise, help facilitate, help give good information, make sure people are whatever, but we're not there on an equal footing as you are around this table. We're here to assist you. So I think that was on reflection afterwards. I felt it was an error to put us on there in the first place. Again, this is your resolution to change or amend or whatever. That's our recommendation to you, is that we shouldn't be on it. would support that from a governance perspective. Your governance, we're operational.
Martin.
Through you, Madam Chair, just a quick question. While it isn't in here in the terms of reference, I assume the council will provide the secretarial support to the working party?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That is a good point. That we
John.
should clarify.
Madam Chair, while I've spoken to you about it, and the inevitable has happened, unfortunately, that this is our third attempt that I'm trying to get to Stewart Island. And I'm being selfish, but we'd like to go. We're leaving on the, and I tried to get it so it wouldn't happen, but it has. You just informed us that I was hoping and had my fingers crossed that the first meeting might have been leading up to the week of that 17th. We've been honest, we will be on Stewart Island other than changes for the environment on the 22nd. Now, while I'd love to be there, this has got to work and it's got to flow, it's got to be consistent. And I think that it would be unfair of me to say, look, just change things for me. I'm quite happy to actually step aside if I have to. I don't know, I'd look for a glass around the table, but I think we're back on Friday. We're back the next week. We're away in that
the dates we're considering at the moment, Mark's been bending over backwards to try and make things work. We've now realised, of course, that the first Monday that we were anticipating actually clashes with the Kaiapoi-Tuahiwi Community Board meeting, and we feel it's not appropriate that we take 2 of your members away for a working group. So we would probably shift that to that Thursday, we're thinking. And then the following one, of course, is actually Labour Day, and we wouldn't hold it on that day, so we would shift that day as well. The other issue Mark has been facing with is we have been working very hard to try and have this working group meet in the church, because it is more, we felt it was more home ground, so to speak, for the residents. They have relatively restricted timeframes that are available, and as well as relatively restricted facilities, as we saw the other night. We're now thinking we'll probably inquire with ENC and see about a spare room there. And so we've probably got a little bit of an iterative process to go through here before we find dates and a place that actually match together. But it is at the moment, we're thinking it'll be that Thursday, the 22nd, which if you were missing for one day, one of the workshop days, I'm not sure that would be a train smash, but again, that's your call.
Because in the original dates were the 12th and the 19th, so you would be away for that second one.
the second was the first one. I appreciate that the first one is setting up, but
Yeah. Thank you, John. Any further questions? Well, moving on to the recommendation. Anyone like to move A, B and C? Is there any discussion around the chair before we move these? This? And Mark and Don has suggested Sandra James, whom I would certainly endorse as a very good.
That is a separate motion.
Well, you can have the discussion, I assume, and then bring it into.
Put them separately. Put them separately.
Yeah.
We can have the discussion.
Well, I'll move as a separate, that we appoint Sandra James as chair of the working group.
Seconder, please. All those in favour? Those against? Then back to the recommendation, A and B.
Noting that B, you've got one resident withdrawing, which will take that down to 7.
One withdrawing, and I would
Would that actually alter the actual terms of reference?
Yep.
We're not locked into necessarily 8, are we?
no.
Yes.
His original comment was
Yes.
It says membership and.
Madam Chair, one way around that, and I did think this was a possible error right from the start, is you could put 5 to 10 in the little brackets under number 2, and that allows exactly the point that.
Or cap it at up to 8.
Yeah, think
I would cap it up to 8.
Up to 8, I think.
Up to 8. And for clarity, while Mark said this is a bit of a moving feast with regard to the people coming and going, we would anticipate that as of today, that is not a moving feast, it is finalised. There are no more applications, no more requests. Your vote today will lock it in.
Thank you. So, just before we move that, everybody happy with 2 people from the same family?
Not especially, but Diane and Ditch over it. Maybe they're on opposing sides.
That could well be. That might be interesting.
Okay.
Do we have flexibility then also if John isn't able to be at the meeting that somebody else
There'll be
is
somebody
a
else that
reserve?
can. Yep.
Was there a recommendation?
Okay. Remove it.
Last time, John will be on that.
Yes, but if he's not able
We
to be
agreed
at the
that
meeting,
people wouldn't be
Martin is
too
not going to
late.
be there.
we don't have more to.
Martin will
Martin
be
will be there.
representative, so Martin will
Yeah.
be there.
Okay, recommendation A and B. Somebody would like to move that, please, as it stands, or you can amend.
I'm happy to move that, Madam Chair, except with altering in the terms of reference, item 2, bullet point 1, changing it to up to 8.
Up to 8.
No more than 8.
Well, if you're actually locking in your people, then it's the 7.
However, I think it wouldn't be unreasonable though for the working party once it's formed to, if there was somebody else who was a resident to join it, but that would have to be a decision of the whole working group once it was formed.
And I would like to see 2 community board members there, so somebody available that could stand in for John if he's not there. And regardless of who that is.
Except, Madam Chair, that at the previous meeting we resolved to appoint myself
John
and
and
John,
yourself.
so maybe we should add another item onto here.
Or
A third person.
You also, yeah, you need to do an alternate.
We've got that written
As
down.
long
Bring it
as
AD.
you're happy with that, you know what I mean? We'd love to be there for the whole thing. This is
Yeah.
a challenge, but I'm in favour of somebody getting Martin head
You need to
company.
name.
So I think if we bring in another A, B, we've done C and D, 2 community boards, John and Martin, with another being added, being able to. How could we do that in the most appropriate way?
You nominate,
Subject.
you nominate an
We nominate
alternate.
you, yes, because you were going to be...
Yeah, well, you can if you want to, yes. And the community board chair if John's, or one of them's not available. Have you written that?
Yeah, I'll
Okay. So we're receiving A and B and D
yeah.
as
And just noting, item 4 on the terms of reference would be amended to specify Sandra James as an independent. Item 8 of the working group just the addition that was spoken about of any recommendations to the Kaiapoi-Tuahiwi Community Board. And on 12, just an addition there of the notes circulated to the Community Board.
Madam Chair, in relation to item 8, about adding something about recommendation, haven't we already covered that in item 7.1, where it says, well, ideally reach a consensus that will form a recommendation to the KTCB?
And also 9.4.
Yeah, there's a few things that have been repeated. It will form a recommendation to the KCB. Yep. Okay, we're back to the recommendation. A, B and D.
Okay. That the chairperson of the Kaiapoi-Tuahiwi Community Board shall serve as an alternate if the nominated representative of the Kaiapoi-Tuahiwi could not attend the Piraki and Victory Street Cycle Working Group meetings.
Do we have someone move that, please?
I was happy to move those, Madam Chair.
You'll move those?
A, B, and D.
Seconder? Brent? Would you like to speak to that, Martin?
Yes, just very briefly, I just want to say that I think we've talked about this before. While there have been issues with the residents of Piraki Street and Victory Street, as we implement our whole cycling and walking strategy, I'm hoping that this will be a template for how we might deal with other streets, because it's inevitable that there's going to be a difference of opinion as to the suitability of the Brother Resident Street for these sort of sites. So I'd just like to think we've got to really persevere with this and try and make it work, because it will set a template for how we operate in the future.
And I would like to concur what you've just said, Martin, and also thank Dom and Mark and the team and the work that you've done. And we'd love to see this money spent in Kaiapoi and make sure that the streets that are going to be cycleways are going to be safe. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'll support the motions. I've got two misgivings. One is the size of the thing. To me, 17 people isn't a working group. It's a talk fest. Good luck, Sandra, trying to keep that little lot in line, especially as quite a few of them will have very little knowledge of committee procedure, probably. And I'm also reiterate what I said before. I'm opposed to our staff not being on the committee. I find that really strange. A lot of the things you're going to have to fight your way through to come to a compromise with everybody are going to be very technical, and to remove the roading and traffic engineers, I find that quite strange. Councillors will tell you how many times we get told round the table up there, we're not roading engineers, we're not traffic engineers. There's a risk we're going to have 17 traffic engineers, and the traffic engineers aren't on the committee, which, as I say, I find that almost bizarre, but so be it.
I appreciate that comment. Just a clarification though, you will be, both of you will be there all the time, will you?
Can I just expand on that?
I understand technically where you're coming from, but yeah.
In a practical sense, are they going to be cutting into the conversation, or are you going to sit there and debate something for 10 minutes and then ask Don or Mark, can we do this? And they'll say no, because that won't get past the safety audit, and oh bugger, so we'll go back. And I don't understand how it's going to work with them.
That will have to be up to Sandra, won't it,
to
manage that.
Yeah. It's effectively just not having that voting right round the table when you're actually coming to make some sort of consensus recommendation going forward. Their expertise will come through the reports that will come to the board and the council in due course.
So what Sandra's going to be managing is a working group, not a voting exercise on anything.
Could I just ask a question, Madam Chair? It may be appropriate for Sarah to answer it. At the last board meeting, it failed to address how residents would be appointed to the group, and I just wondered if we fall them into the same track today, because it doesn't actually say who the residents are going to be in the resolution. You've appointed a chairperson.
They've already named.
They're in the report, they're not in the resolution. You're just resolving to appoint up to 8.
You need to
Comment on it.
endorse the application.
You can resolve it formally and by all means,
Well,
to
that
actually specify.
would be an extra E to say appoint the 7 or 8 named
7.
members who were selected.
That'd be perfectly fine.
Otherwise, I still don't think we get.
Yes, yeah.
Because that would also follow on from whether or not Paul Croucher is included there. Is that correct? Is that
Correct,
getting
and
at?
I think if you use the criteria previously, then he's out of time.
Okay.
An alternative,
Edit.
you could amend B to say, adopts the amended, which will have the effect of increasing the number of resident, I suppose I'm just sort of thinking you could word it so that to say the residents will be appointed, all residents who apply prior to
Will be appointed.
will be appointed. And then not specifically naming residents in the resolution. We did have a little bit of a concern. We've taken their names out of our draft letter to go to all residents. We felt that might not be, it might be too overwhelming for people who have put their name forward to suddenly have their name all the way up and down the street, even though people can find that name if they look for it.
But you've put it in the public report
Oh,
anyway,
yes, we
so they're
have.
already named.
Exactly.
So you may as well name them in the recommendation.
Well,
Resolution.
it's just bringing it up another level, I guess, in terms of exposing them. Whereas, as has been pointed out, it's more in the background of the report at the moment. And we're aware that everybody will probably know sooner or later, but we're just not wanting to be the ones that, for instance, put those 8 names or 7 names in a letter to every resident. That's our feeling at the moment.
So we can't include Paul because there were many others that actually applied for the situation as well. In time.
In time.
Yeah, but he was late, so we can't. Okay. So back to the recommendation. A, B, D and E with the names included. The 7 names included.
Or reference to how they're
Yeah.
appointed, chairman of the board.
So that would be all those 7 names with the exclusion of Rachel. Have we got someone that would like to move?
Should we cover that by the closing all that? Contributing it, isn't it?
Applied.
Just at the end.
Yeah. Well, we shouldn't have to because it should be written somewhere.
Madam Chair, that's referred to in those names are referred to in the report.
Yeah.
Subsequent information says that one of them doesn't, so I don't think there is a problem with item E simply being those 7 names.
7 names. 7 names in the report.
That's all it needs to say.
Yeah,
That's all it needs to say.
absolutely. So we can change that representatives up to 8, that'll be alright. Okay, A, B and E. A, B and D, sorry. Do we have D? Yes. Have we got the mover?
I've moved all of those.
Martin and John,
I agree.
and you've all spoken to it. Anybody else want to speak to? The motion has been moved. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you, Don and Mark.
We know.